There we go. Okay, welcome you guys. We're going to talk about a really big concept today. And this is something that I've kind of been playing with for a while, but I did not have language or the ability to talk about it or teach on it, or really even how to break it down in such a way that I thought people would really grasp it and understand it. And so we're going to start bringing this out today because I think it's time. You know, one of the things Violet and I were doing some practice past life hypnosis regressions about a month ago. One of the things that her subconscious said to me was, well, if you don't say it, somebody else will. And then the next thing out of her mouth was, and there are very few undistorted channels out there anymore. And I was like, right, I would rather get the undistorted version out there into the world rather than little fractals of the information end up out there without the full understanding of the bigger picture. So I first want to talk about December 21st, 2020. Let's go back in time about 2 weeks now, 1 week now, I don't even know what day it is anymore. And let's look at that day when many people all over the world were in this space of thinking that this great conjunction was going to bring the rise of another Messiah, that the gods were going to come, that the aliens were going to arrive. Somebody was coming to save the proverbial us, humanity. And it was a doorway opening. Then we had another section of people that went, hooray, we're now officially in the age of Aquarius. And then we had another section of people that are like, hooray, it's December 21st, Christmas is in 4 days, where's my presents, right? Like we had so many different ideologies coming to the surface on this day. And really, what's true? Well, one of the things that I've been receiving a lot in my channels and understanding of what's coming in the days to come is that there isn't another rise of a Messiah or these archetypal godlike beings or even ETs coming at this time who are here to save or be the culture bringers or to pivot how humanity is going. This isn't the way because we found another way that's actually been working in a much more efficient manner, which has been through the walk-in effect. Now, if you haven't listened to my information on walk-ins before, I do have one video out on YouTube thus far. We train about it in the Decodes Level 1 a little bit program, and especially in Decodes Level 2 and the Advanced Practitioner. But the walk-in effect has many different ways that it can affect a human body, and it's basically where there is more than one soul residing within one human system. Okay, so we don't have a Messiah coming. So what's happening instead? Because obviously what's working on Earth right now is not the most efficient manner. And so we've had to change the game a little bit. There's got to be a way that we can start shifting the culture, start shifting the consciousness, change the paradigm without people going into another layer of that God worship complex, because we don't want them in this God poison. This is something that has been enslaving the human mind for a long time, that there is this one almighty being who is the savior, the light, and the way, from religions and pantheons all over the world. It's not just Catholicism or Christianity. You know, we see this in just about every culture everywhere. We don't have this happening because it was never the original dream for this earth. The original dream for this earth was to have a common body, avatars that could house any type of starseed race to come and have a collective experience with all the other starseed races, to have adventures, interchange information, teach each other, send information back and forth. Because let's face it, when we're not in a common body, it's sometimes hard for us to get information across to one another. Oh, Violet, I see you have a thought.
Yeah, it was just like, it's so interesting that you're saying a common body. Yes, we're all human, but I find it so fascinating how actually different we are, like when you just look at us physically. And I'm wondering if that is almost a mirror for the different races and collectives that we have going on, or because I know sometimes when we've connected with some collectives, a lot of them look very similar, which is very different from Earth. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have a couple of thoughts. One, some of the collectives that we think look very similar, it's our very narrow understanding of what we can see and picture of them in our minds. Like when I see everybody doing these renderings of what they think the Arcturians or the Pleiadians look like, or potentially even bringing in some of the Polarians, the Alcyone people, when they are drawing them very humanoid with this long silvery hair and things like this, I just sit there and I'm like, but it helps our limited perception, because if we saw them the same way they actually look from our human lensing, we might not see the beauty, even though their words and the tones and the information is what is often catalyzing these massive changes in humans. And so there are similarities for sure, especially a lot of these collectives. We have bipedal, so two-legged humanoid species who, walk upright like we do. They have bodies in this way, but they might not function the same way. They all have different head shapes, mouth and nose constructions, eye layers. Some of them are multi-eyed, which is super interesting too. So it just depends on where they're from, what they're going to look like. But there are similarities that do drop into our human experience and how we will frame these bodies. Like you guys can't really tell on camera, but I'm 5'9". When you see Violet and I together, she's always like, "What's up, Caitlin?" Because you're what, like 5 foot nothing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and I bring through some of my traits into this human body. And my mom was 5'2". My dad was 6 foot. Like I could have gone to either end of that spectrum for sure. We could say it's genetics. I don't think it all is. I think there is absolutely an influence from our morphogenetic field. Okay, dialing back out. So, this idea of having this similar avatar in a human body is that we use the same kind of body language, we use the same kind of emotional expression, we use a very similar intonation when the sounds come through our mouths. Even though the languages are different, like English to French, French to Spanish, Spanish to Italian, right? Whatever other languages there are on this planet, the tones are all the same. What's different when we go out to the galactic races is that the languages are still different, but the tones are also different. And so, if a Pleiadian, for example, is sharing a message about, let's just take a concept of love, if they are sharing a message of love to humanity, the tone that they drop into our field is not the same tone that an Arcturian would use. When they would speak the exact same message, our bodies here on this earth plane receive it completely differently because they play in different hertz and octaves and light and sound waves based on where they are currently experiencing life. And so for us, if we are out in these galactic lifetimes and we have this interstellium alliance who has hundreds of collectives who come together to share and bridge information, which is what this earth plane was supposed to be, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. When we have hundreds of different collectives, all with different tones, languages, and pitches of how they use the sound and light, it can be tricky to pass information and to share information and to ground data. And so, what was designed eons ago was a human body system, a chakra system that people could plug into. A being could go, "Hey, I've been an Orion whale." Violet will know what I'm talking about. She'll be like, "I've been an Orion whale species for eons, but I want to go and collect information from the angelics." Well, it's very difficult for her in that Orion whale form to then connect with, say, like a seraphim or a straight angelic. Like it's not the same pitch range. But if an angelic starseed and a whale starseed both come into a human incarnation, guess what happens? All of a sudden, we're using the same tonal waves and passing the data like this. And when she's able to share her stuff with me and I share it with her, we beam that back through our collectives to bring those lessons and pieces of information so that we can all keep working cohesively together and understand each other on these different levels. Okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle. Violet, do you have any other thoughts you want to add there before we go to this next part?
Not really. That was fairly clear. Yeah, the big question about, I really want to go back to that conversation where you started about um, people thinking that there's like this new Messiah coming, or the other story that I've heard a lot is that Jesus is coming back, like now, like
Oh,
he's
Lord
probably
help
already
me.
here.
Okay. Um, yes. So this is why there are star seeds implanted literally all over this planet, you guys. There isn't another Messiah coming. What we discovered in trying to change the paradigm of what humanity has been going through for the last, well, about 1,000 years, is that every time a Messiah has been dropped, so we could actually go back like 4,000 years into the Egyptian, Mesopotamian type eras, the Sumerian type eras. Every time we bring a archetypal god-like figure that is so above humanity, instead of humanity going, whoa, I have many of these capacities within me, we've created a false light worship grid where the humans end up dropping back down deeper into a slavery type frequency. We see this even in, I mean, I just had this interaction in a mom's group today, of all places, where people still are in this space where they go, well, if you don't believe in Jesus in this way, your soul is going to be harmed by demonics. And I'm like, oh, honey, I've danced with the devil. They're fine. Like, you need to understand their nature. Like, I don't know what you're so afraid of, but it ain't what the Bible says. Um, yeah, so we are not going to have a singularity Messiah drop down. We're not going to have one race of ETs drop down. This is why the Starseed walk-in effect was designed, and why Starseeds have been implanted literally all over this planet, who are starting to wake up to these threads that they're more than this human body. And I know, Violet, we've been seeing a huge surge of this in the last year, especially. Like, the difference from 2017 to now we're in 2021 is huge. Like, there was awareness in some people in 2017, but not like it is today.
It's almost mainstream.
Oh, it's totally. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I totally use the starseed term as a mainstream meta catchphrase because it makes sense to people right now. But it's not quite being like presented to the full truth of what it actually is. So we're going to talk more about that too, but I want to really stay on topic with this drivers and avatars thing because there's so many segues we could go down. So let's first talk about a driver, because I think if we start at the very beginning and then we disperse it out, it's going to help you guys wrap your heads around it. Jody just put in the chat, she said, I've always just thought of messiahs as a reminder of our potential. I can't see the other word in our body.
In a human
In human
body.
body.
I've never thought of it as a hierarchy.
That's what it was originally supposed to be, Jody, right? Like, it was culture bringers, these races, these beings coming in, and they were supposed to drop all these codes, and the humans were supposed to be like, oh, right, that's who I am. Instead, they're like, let me build your pyramid on a chain, right? Like, oh man, we didn't get it very quickly, and so we're trying this a different way now. We're totally going to pivot. So let's zoom way out. There are multiple beings that we could refer to now as, we could say archetypes, but some of them actually are embodied beings who have dropped in over millennia into certain roles, into certain bodies that have been like culture bringers, teachers, messiahs, gurus to the earth plane. Now, they don't just come here, but we're just going to focus on earth here right now because that's where we all are, and this is the lifetime that matters. So let's take the archetype of Jesus because he's already come up today. If we have the archetype of Jesus and he's a real being up in the sky being is not the Jesus as presented on this earth plane. The sky being is going to be something we call a driver. The driver is going to be kind of like an overarching soul that becomes responsible for a few different avatars. And so what we don't get presented in the information is that the time when Jesus, or whatever they called him in that era, was here, he wasn't the only one. This is really important, you guys. He wasn't the only one. A driver is going to have multiple avatars that get implanted down that are all reading the same set of Akashic type records so that their human existence has a similar tone and theme. So they arrive at the same type of message and information to embody, to extract, to be able to share, to be able to work with on this human plane. I'm like, somebody's trying to come through. I'm like, you can't channel right now, back out. And so what we see is that maybe Jesus was here. Maybe there was a Buddhist priest at the same time. Maybe there was someone in Rome. Maybe there was somebody within the Native American tribes at that time. I don't know what they would have been called. My history is shit. I don't memorize any of that on this earth, and I'm not going to even profess to. Maybe we're going to have one of those implanted in every single culture, but they're not separate beings at a higher soul level. They come from a driver. We see the same thing in the goddess collectives. So if you go and do research, you're going to find that almost every single culture around the world has a goddess of love, of the night, of family, of destruction, and they all have different names. Like we've got Kali Ma, we've got Durga, we've got Brigid. They are, yes, individual bodies that at one time walked this planet, driven by a driver. Now, some of them are a little bit separate from the same collective, but we'll just wrap our hands around this. So a driver soul is going to be one of the ones that tends to bring a certain data set, a frequency down here to this planet that the people could pick up, start embodying, and start dancing with in their everyday lives. The goal is they're not supposed to really interfere, but they're here to teach. They're supposed to lead the way. Well, what's happened is when humans have had these drivers come in, they have felt so far above and beyond in capabilities that worship grid started. So now what's been designed instead is we have multiple people, let's say multiple Pleiadians, all agree that they're going to come and they're going to bring the same set of information to this earth plane. They borrow records and a thread of information from the main driver who's done it before. They download it into their being. They come here and then they go out and work on their missions. This is
like drivers of drivers.
This is drivers of drivers.
It's like you've got the main consciousness, soul, I don't know what you want to call it. And then it like sends the data to others who then come in to a human body. That's kind of what you're saying.
Right. Wow. This is a big concept, but think about it this way. You guys go spend an hour in any of the big metaphysical starseed groups and go look at how many people will profess that they are a certain famous historical figure. I was Mary Magdalene in my past life. Really? Because at least 3 of my clients have also thought they're her. How is that possible? I know at least 5 women who believe they were Amelia Earhart. Were they all Amelia Earhart? No. They are avatars reading a certain set of information from the original soul that went through that experience to continue dispersing the information, the knowledge, and the frequency. And we do this all the time. This is huge. Like I can feel people being like, what?
Jennifer has a great question in the chat. She said, so is a driver representing a collective or an ascended master or something else with the purpose of helping Earth ascend?
The driver souls do not see themselves as ascended masters. So that is the first thing I would ask you guys to collapse, is they do not see themselves as an epitome of perfection. So that's really important. Um, the driver souls are going to be any and all of those things. They could be an ambassador from a particular collective that has agreed to hold this role for a period of time. It could be an actual soul who this just is their frequency and their makeup. So, for example, the soul that is Isis is a driver, but that's not the only soul that driver drives. Okay. They have multiple archetypes. So, no, we can't limit it that way. It's not just from one collective. And I've seen these, there seem to be a couple of core collectives that these main driver souls come from. One of the most prolific right now is a group called the Essenes. If you guys have heard of them, Dolores Cannon actually has a book called Jesus and the Essenes. The Essenes are sometimes the Essassani people. You'll sometimes see it written that way. It's same, no difference. They seem to be one of the hubs of having a lot of these driver souls. A lot of the beings that come and have mastered university, universal university, where it's like they have traveled everywhere, picked up fragmentations and lessons from all the different collectives, and they are universal galactic bridges. They seem to come through the Essassani and go through that priming and then create the avatar divides. So that's one of the prime ones I see them coming through. I have not yet to date seen any Pleiadian drivers. That seems to be, Pleiadians tend to stay very Pleiadian. Like, it's very interesting to me. Of all the collectives within the Interstellium Alliance, they are probably one of the most, I don't like using this word, but like pure races where they don't do a lot of dividing out. We do see some of the drivers coming from the Alnitak and what's the other one? It's out of my head. Orion's. It's the other A.
Rigel, right?
Yeah, the Rigellans sometimes, but there's another A one in Orion. Why is it out of my head? Whatever, it'll come back. So we do see lots of beings come through Orion. Orion is kind of another star belt where we have a lot of mixing pot going on. There are a lot of different races, a lot of different beings come together to work there. So that's another one we see a lot of these from.
Analam.
Alnilam, thank you. Thank you. I knew it was the other A one. It was like, God, where is this? Anyways, so the other one that I do sometimes see as driver souls is coming through the Seraphim. They are other ones that tend to bring a lot of information through. And so they will go Seraphim. There's also the Elohim and the Nephilim, and they will separate down into the angelics and bridge that through. And so we have a lot of this coming through. Okay. So a lot of people, Amanda just asked this in the chat, how can you tell if you're a driver? It's very difficult, Amanda. One of the things that has been so important about this mission this time is that nobody gets to the place where their ego is so big that they go, I am this being, which means I am so self-important. And so you all need to see me as important. And so in this human body, in this human experience, we are not really meant to, we're not really meant to see ourselves as above or like more omnipotent, omnipresent. Like, it's really meant to be a blending strategy. One of the easiest ways to do it, I have found thus far, is through the past life regressions, although that's not always accurate. One of the things as I've been doing more and more of these, is that I'm seeing if the body that is going down into a past life hypnosis, even if they are in that deepest theta state, if they have a really strict leaning towards how they believe or feel about a certain subject, they will override what their soul has to say about it and give information that helps them keep an identity. So I would say the easiest way, not so easy, is you need to be at the space where your need to have a human identity and ego is almost collapsed. That's number one. Humility is key in being able to get yourself back into this information. And one of the other things that I have seen so far, and I've only seen one other driver to date, One of the things I have seen so far is that both of these people are like, are you sure? I don't know. Whoa, that's really big. Like there's a little bit of a fog about it where they're like, okay, I can claim that. I'm going to rock it, but I don't know. It almost feels a little bit separate. So it's not easy to figure it out. There are not a lot of drivers here. So Violet, we were talking about that back and forth in both of those channeling sessions we were doing. There are not a lot of main drivers here, but the main drivers have communities built up around them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that part in the conversations we were doing?
Partially.
I'm like
Partially.
making you track on the
Yeah,
spot.
I have to bring it up again.
Yeah. So the whole concept was that the main drivers are all here, you guys. All the I'm getting goosebumps. All the drivers you guys know of, like Bast, Sekhmet, Isis, Jesus, like all of the gurus, all of the previous Dalai Lamas, like all of these beings over time, you know, the Brigides, all of the Greek gods, goddesses, they're all here. They are all embodied. Every single driver soul is on deck right now. Like, can you feel that? That's weird.
It is weird. So
It
they're
is
just
weird.
like walking around like just regular people.
They are walking around like regular people, and most of them don't have a freaking clue yet. Okay. So they're all here. Many of them are starting to build up communities. They are starting to build up spaces where they are sharing their voice, sharing their information, where they are asking others to also rise up, join the circle. So the main drivers are all here. They're all culture sharing again, or starting to, or feeling like they're supposed to. And they are circling their people around them. Okay. No, Sadhguru is not a driver. He is an avatar. This is why all the gurus, all of the Sadhgurus, all the Satgurus, they all sound the same. They are avatars reading off the same data set. But if there was only one, they couldn't reach as many people. But because there are many, they can speak to the masses without running out of their own individual energy, because it is a lot to hold that for so many people. Like, as an example, if I came here and I was a driver and I was responsible for all 7.7 billion of you in a human body, like, I don't think so. There's no way I could hold that by myself, right? That's too much. Not only that, how would I speak to everybody? How would I hug everybody? How would I share the codes with everybody? It's too much. And so we share the load. Okay. All right, so we have these main drivers. They're embodied. Most of them are here at this time. A lot of them are either starting to speak or just starting to speak and come into that space where they're starting to gather communities around them. Most of them don't know who they are at their core yet, because they're not even chasing these galactic concepts yet, or going into the galactic levels of self, but it will start to download in the days to come. Then they have a set of information. You could see it kind of like an Akashic record, and it's been bundled like a little hologram. And this little holographic record has been given to you. And they have said, here, Violet, I'm giving you my data set. Here is everything I know and understand about the universe, about the teachings, about the things we're about to do. And I want you to be able to read this. So here's the hologram. Push it into your world. And you, as a soul, came in from whatever collective or being you were prior to this, and perhaps you're reading it from your family line even. And you have this holographic bundle that's with you, full of records that are not necessarily originally your own. They're called an implant record or a hologram record. And there's hologram records that are helpful, and there's hologram records that are not helpful. So it's important that we also do some discernment here. So this, let's say you're connected to a particular deity. We're going to use Isis because she's just in my awareness right now. And let's say Violet is connected to Isis, and maybe she was initiate to her in a particular timeline way back when in Egypt, and she's already studied underneath her before. Isis then goes, okay, we've got work to do, my young grasshopper. And she takes all of this information. She says, here's your bundle. Remember everything you are, everything you can do, everything you've already learned. Take it to the people. Use your own voice in this human lifetime to spread this as far as you can. Go. And all the other drivers are doing the same. They're taking one record and they're handing it off. So maybe Isis has given this to Violet and she's given this to all 300 of you. Who knows? Okay. And you all have the same record. Now, when people are first starting their spiritual journeys and they first start to read their Akashic records, likely they're not going to look at these ones because they are not written and designed with the same frequency that our main Akashic records are written with, because they are not full of 4D horse caca like a majority of our Akashic record library. They are a 12D embodiment of what the human body is capable of with the information that you're about to download. Okay. So what happens next is most people start on the path with their spirituality. They get the wake-up call, something happens, and they're like, whoa, I realize I'm a spiritual being having this human experience. And they start getting readings. Maybe they even go to a psychic, and the psychic is like, I think you were Isis. Because they get a glimmer of that package that got handed off to you. The problem is we haven't learned to discern well enough yet what's what, right? Most healers, most people who have trained in the metaphysical arts, they don't go far enough with the information to keep transiting and asking better questions and figuring out like the grander puzzle of things. They tend to stop and buy things as complete truth with the first element they see. I don't operate like that. And the longer you guys spend time with me, you'll understand that my MO is to keep asking questions and pulling apart and dissecting and going further. And how does this link out to this universe? And this is Stargate, etc. Mm-hmm. So then we end up with a bunch of beings all over the planet who have these implant records that they've brought in, these holograms, who are all running around being like, guess who I was in my past life? I was Isis. Violet's face says it all right now. Like, can you see her eyebrows?
I try so hard not to like show
react to that
on my face. It's just not. No, I'm sorry.
And it's so fun. Like when you hear something like that, you want to grab onto it. You want to be like, whoa, I am so important. I was so cool in my past life. I even see people doing this with like, I was a princess. I was a ruler in Rome. Oh yeah, well, I was this government official. Super. All of the drivers, all of the people of importance who are here now do not have that complex. And so if there's an ego key to it, that is your first clue that they are not who they think they are. Because if there is an ego key to it, where they are like, this is me, this is who I've been in my past life, you need to listen because clearly I have experience with this. Like, no bueno. These beings, these archetypes, they don't run on that MO. They are so humble that you kind of can't put your finger on why their lives look the way they look, because they're so grounded and they're so like you, but they're so not. You know, these drivers are very, very well integrated while being very much all hands on deck in the skies, feet are on the ground. Like they just have that full package that everybody kind of wants, but there's no ego about it. They just are. Okay, Vi, I think there's been some questions coming up. So let's look at these because it might help us go deeper with the conversation.
Yeah, so Erin's asking, she said, could this explain why I'm feeling such a push to get out and spread my knowledge? A driver is sharing this message and push.
The drivers will typically, most of the drivers are already in place that know they are, but likely, like if I'm being 100% honest, likely you have a holographic implant record that now you're here to help crack open. I personally don't feel that most people are going to want to be the driver. right? That's our human want. We're going to want to be the driver. Most of us are carrying the avatar to be able to help with that pantheon of work. And it doesn't make your message and your wanting to rise any less important. Please know that. Some of the people who are the avatars are going to have even bigger audiences than the drivers will themselves.
Totally. And you'll see this already happening. Like
Yes.
there's people with very large audiences, and what I have found personally, like just in my own journey, is there were a few key ones that were very well known, and really they were the easiest ones to find when I was first starting to wake up. And so what they do is they kind of like drop little seeds of potential into your field and give you an avenue to start moving down your own path. So it's like they'll just show up as like little guideposts along your path, and you meet up with them, and then they send you in the next direction. That was my experience anyway.
Yeah, and that's typically what the avatars will do is they'll plant a really big seed, and then the people that have followed them for a little while will eventually go, "Wait, I have that package too. I understand everything you're saying." And then they'll find themselves back in the presence of the driver. And this happens over and over and over again. So it doesn't make it any less important, but do I feel like you are the driver? No, I feel like you have the avatar package.
Which is super important too. Like
It's
the
huge.
avatars, they're they're the ones
Their
that
role,
get
their
so much
role's harder
done.
almost,
It's
you
like
know?
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Courtney's asking, I've actually been told by a well-known psychic that I was some ascended Buddhist in one lifetime. Um, and a very famous religion figure, can't remember who, but when I first heard that, I was like, well, she must be crazy. I actually didn't feel attracted to it at all.
There will be a repulsion when people share things with you that are not correct, or if you don't want to receive them. It can go in a couple directions, right? We don't want to say either way. We have to do some discernment. A lot of times we have to be very aware of who is reading us, because if they have any sort of ego or laurels resting on giving you a particular type of reading so that you walk away feeling like you've received something huge, you may get information that is false because their ego and their imagination will just start drawing things that they think might stick with you. So what I would do, Courtney, is I would destroy and uncreate all of that. I would take it all apart and I would go again. I would look at my truth testing and my radar and be like, hey, body, am I this particular religious figure? The fact that you can't remember said name is probably a really big clue, and that's okay. I would also be asking some questions like, were these even my records she was reading? That's a really important one. A lot of Akashic record readers are not reading your records, they're reading their own or somebody else's. So lots of discernment, you guys, lots of truth testing. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions we wanted to dive into?
No, it looks like a lot of statements.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, this whole thing, like, we are at the turning point. We're at a crossroads of how this eclipse window is talking. Like Colby and I just talked about that last Friday. If you haven't listened to that video yet, it's very worthwhile to tune into so that you have a little bit of a foundation of what I'm saying here. But we are at the exact midpoint of the huge shift we're going to see in this 7-year cycle that we're in, which ends in 2024. The drivers at this time, most of them are just starting to wake up to who they are. They are just going to start showing their faces in different platforms, different directions. Most of them are not already prominent speakers. Most of them do not have like a cajillion followers already. Most of them are not, they won't, mm, they won't make content to just fill space. This is really important, you guys. Like, they get super intentional. So if you've been following specific people on YouTube for years that are, just talking about all these spiritual metaphysical things, these are not going to be their drivers. These are going to be people that may have some of that holographic information. These may be people that are here on a mission to just like drop ideas, things like this. Drivers will not put out information that is just for entertainment. In fact, most people won't be able to listen all the way through to driver information because it's going to be like too
Too big.
much.
Yeah.
It's too big. Yeah. So that'll be super fascinating to just watch how it comes over the next couple of years.
So they're kind of like the next wave coming, is kind of what it sounds like you're saying. It's
Yes,
like
but
we've
they're
had,
already here.
yeah, but I mean, as far as the ones that people are listening to, I mean,
Yes.
like we've had, like you said, like way back thousands of years ago, we had these really non-human beings coming to Earth to share information, and then it switched to these kind of um, these people that were in a prominent position, teachers, leaders in the community, um, and then to these other people that are like the sage on the stage that we have right now, right? These people with very large audiences that do have strong, important messages to share, but it feels like that's kind of shifting now. And then we're going to go into this driver communication going forward,
Yes.
starting maybe this year going forward.
So one of the things you guys are going to see is a lot of these people who, I love that, sage on a stage. A lot of these people who have built up their entire following on being really well-known public speakers and engaging very large audiences on a particular topic or three, they're going to find they lose resonance with the people because they're not going to be going deep enough into the subjects that are actually the catalysts for closing out this 7-year cycle. We're going to be seeing the drivers come in and doing a really swift, quick hit of energy healing, and releasing it through the avatars. Maybe I can make this really human.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend I'm a driver for a hot minute. Okay, let's pretend that me, the being is Caitlin, is some magnificent driver and I've come in, and that all of my people who have taken decodes are kind of like the avatar carriers that come in and they're like, hey, I'm going to grab this record. I've studied with you before. I've been an apprentice with you before. I can hold this tone. I'm going to take this out. While these people that become these decoders and that have that information, they could be one of two things. Usually it's going to be the latter. If it was an avatar, I would be driving it. I would also be that person. So this is really important. So if I'm here as Caitlin, the driver, and one of my decoders was also me, I would also be running their parallel life. Well, that's highly unlikely to happen because my consciousness can't split into two human bodies at the exact same time very easily from this position. So likely all of the decoders that would be around me would be people that have one of those Akashic packages, right? They would have the holographic information to be able to go and run the tones, be able to run it through the world. Then each of them, because they have that holographic information, as they go out there and the people that they touch and they reach, as they say yes to who they are and they start stepping up and becoming who they're becoming, those people will also take the package and begin to look at it and deconstruct it and go, wait a second, I'm not just a human with a human body. There's more to me than this. This is why starseeds everywhere are literally waking up by the thousands daily right now, is because it's passing down the lines so quickly. And the thing is, most of the people that have these packages don't even know they have them. But just being in their presence is so catalyzing that you can't help but be changed just by spending time with them, right? It is the way it is. It's been designed this way because we don't want any single being going on an ego trip with this. Because we can all see what happens when a single person or political party of power gets power over a people. What happens? It's pandemonium. There's always people that get crushed. This isn't the way this world needs to operate. And the hope is that by the end of 2024, our government systems do a huge reform and that we start matching what the Interstellium Alliance does, because it flows like clockwork and it's beautiful and it's so easy. Nobody fights. Nobody's down each other's throats. Nobody's getting left behind. Nobody's poorer than. Everybody is able to create as much as they want to create, or to hold themselves back as much as they want to hold themselves back for that individual experience. But that's completely up to them, and they can go to any part of the spectrum whenever they choose. It's just a thought away. So we're moving towards this. And this is why everybody's waking up right now, because we're coming back to that original dream of why we all decided Earth was going to be a cool meeting place in the beginning, right? Like we're all here to share, to bring this education, to bring the knowledge of maybe what I experienced in as an Essassani to you, Violet, as an Orion Alnitak. Like maybe you as an Alnitak Orion are going to go and share information with a Syrian dolphin. Maybe that Syrian dolphin is going to go talk to a seraphim. Like we're all here in these human avatars, in these human bodies, I should say, to share and pass information across.
That's where the story of "we came here for fun"
Right.
comes from.
Huge.
Yeah.
Totally relevant. Okay. What questions can I answer to help tie this up for now? I know there's going to be a lot of conversation that happens around this.
Laurel just said sometimes 2024 seems a long way away.
You know, I'm going to say something, maybe it's going to be slightly controversial, but I think when things feel a long ways away, it's because we're truly avoiding the things we're meant to do. Because when you're aligned and you are playing the game you're here to play, time is not slow. And it becomes a joy and an experience and an expression every single day, no matter how intense the energies are around you. 2020 felt slow for a lot of people. For me, it went by so fast. Like
it flew by. I'm still
like
in
I don't
shock
even
that it's 2021.
I know. I'm like, how did we even get here? There was 365 days. I didn't watch Netflix for that many of them. So like, how did this happen?
So my question coming up from all of this is, if Earth is that place where, and especially these the drivers, and even to some aspect um, the avatars, if being in their presence is enough to start kind of sharing these codes and the information and passing it along, how does our current climate of kind of self-isolation, how is that affecting it? Is there a difference with coming together in online channels like we are right now, or passing information differently? I know from my own personal experience, there's a huge difference when we come together in person versus online, even though the online is such a great tool.
Some humans will still feel like they need the in-person all the time to download all the information. We do not. We can download everything we need while being apart like this. And in fact, telepathy can be heightened greatly while we're in this space. But being apart in the way that we're being put apart, it depends on how you are using it. To me, I have completely used it to go inwards as deep as I can into everything I can see within myself, to push it out to others as far and wide as I can bring it. And so being apart has never sent me into this space of being in a extreme cocoon, or where I wasn't expressing myself, or, you know, I know many people over the course of this year, depending on the situations they were in, because they're, oh, no, not right now. One of the things that, one of the statements, and I talked about this in my rewriting the Matrix post, that's been said all year has been, we're in this together. And while it's so true that we are all experiencing this same time period, while we are all experiencing the exact same sequencing of whatever this virus is or is not, while it's so true that we are all experiencing all of the messaging and the government information and the health authority information and the vaccine information, we're not all truly in this together. There's a great many people who missed the download of this recent coronavirus of 2019, 2020. There's a great many people who, don't know why I'm on this tangent, but hey-oh, here it's coming up. There's a great many people that didn't take the coding that is in it to help them shut down all of the exit strategies they have running about how to play small, how to keep separated, how to be isolated, how to even get out of Earth if they want to. A lot of people didn't do their cleanup work this year. And so because of that, what we're seeing is the pressure is really on. It's creating this feeling of a deeper divide between the woke folk, the non-woke folk. It's creating this space where a lot of people feel like the energy of this last year has been repressive, has been slow, has not been conducive to growth, when really it was the greatest catalyst for change you could have taken in our waking life to date. Even more so than the eclipse period of 2017. 2020 gave us the ability to clear out all of those old exit strategies. I don't even know what your original question was. I feel like I overwrote it, but whatever.
It's
We'll
fine.
have to go circle back to that. So I think what I want to share is this upcoming year, we still have that shadow period of getting that download. But we have a lot of people who have, those holographic implants in the information. We have a lot of avatars who have dropped out of the picture, who have gotten sucked back into the matrix. We even have some of the drivers themselves who have gotten sucked into the matrix because they came in with human programming. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't know. What was your original question?
How this self-isolation kind of situation is affecting our ability to exchange.
That's why I got on this tangent.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why I got on this tangent.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we'll answer that part of the question. The self-isolation, you get to make it what you want. For most of us, I mean, we're all here. We all have the internet. We all have computers or smartphones, whatever. There are people not in that position, right? So we have to acknowledge that not everybody is given the exact same opportunity. For those people who are feeling that separation, they're choosing that. And it's 100% choice. I've not felt disconnected once this year. So that is a frequency that is playing. There are multiple different frequencies, you guys, that have been dropped to you through all of the programming that has happened this year. And when we start to go into that, I'm alone, I'm tired, I'm isolated, I don't have a choice, I can't do this, my freedoms have been stripped away, I have no soul sovereignty anymore. When we go down that really dark, murky rabbit hole, we create it. We become exactly what is being programmed. And I repeat, not everybody saying these things knows what they are saying or creating. And so it is very important that we do a lot of clearing work on this. And we not paint people as perpetrators or evil or villainous when we do not know their hearts and their soul and why they are in the positions they are in. Because I know dozens of nurses in my family who are saying these things, but they're saying it because they truly believe that is their experience right now. And they truly believe that is what is going to help. They don't realize the programming effects of it. And so it's not their job to look after me. It's my job to do my clearing work and recognize what's going on. Okay. So that's, yeah, if you're in that space of being separated, it's completely choice to not be getting the downloads. You don't need another human physical body right beside you, although it helps.
It's like a false reality, false meaning soup that you've just created.
Totally.
It's just looking at it from the wrong angle. I mean, wrong is like a subjective term, but you know what I mean? Like it's perception. That's what it is.
Totally.
It's just how you're choosing to read the information, which is, yeah, it's all of our experience here on Earth in human bodies. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to go down the trail. I can see some of you guys asking questions about the different things about COVID. We can talk about that in a different video. I want to keep this really on the drivers and this whole avatar situation, but we can have another conversation about those different aspects because I think it is still on people's hearts. But go back in some of my previous blog posts. You will see a lot of information about those things that you guys are asking. A lot of those things you have asked before and you just don't like the answer still, or you don't want to align to it because somebody is still pressuring you otherwise. So I would encourage you to go back in within yourself and look at what is it in me that is trying to appease these certain masses. That will be really, really important. Anyways, to circle back around and just to close off this driver avatar, and then we'll call them like the initiates or the apprentice situation. You guys are going to start recognizing this in yourselves in the very near future. There's a couple of downloads that I think are going to be coming in about the second week in February is my feels right now in terms of Earth timing that they're going to hit this Earth plane. There's going to be another huge wave of people that all of a sudden are like, whoa, I'm here to be a messenger. I'm here to be a healer. I'm here to do this. And they're going to have this drive that just seems to come up somewhat out of nowhere for them to start sharing. It's an activation of what has been gifted to them. And now is the time. So it's going to be really fascinating to watch. If you guys have more questions about this, please make sure you leave them in the comments. I will be doing blogs. We will do another conversation on this, I'm sure, because it's such a huge topic. And yeah, we'll keep posted on that to make sure that we can start strengthening and widening this conversation, because it's going to be so relevant in the years to come. Vi, do you have any closing remarks you want to make?
No, I don't think so. The big question for me at this point is just like, does it even matter if you're a driver or, does it even matter? I think it's something that if we're focusing on, we've lost the point.
If you're focusing on that part and you can't see your mission yet, there's a pretty good clue that you have some self-work to do first. Your mission will align with something that is so inherently close to your nature that you're going to want to override it because it's too easy. Right? Like, I find public speaking and talking to people ridiculously easy. And it's actually part of my mission. Violet finds organizing and doing these things very easy for her, and bringing information out. It's part of her mission. If you get tied into the ego trap of exactly who am I before aligning to how do I, you're going to get lost. And so my encouraging words for you would be, look at how you want to be a helper. Look at where you shine and what information you can share with the world. Some of you guys who are still searching, check in. Are you here on an individual mission, or are you here to support somebody else's? You know, a lot of times one of the lies that has been perpetuated into the healing meta communities is that everybody has their own individual mission. Some of you guys do not. Some of you guys have been coming in on collaborative efforts and just simply to be you. And we make that not enough by human standards. So some of you guys are here to just be an anchor and to express all of these spiritual affinities and gifts and curiosities because it just helps catalyze people around you. And that's huge, but we don't see it as enough because we aren't necessarily in the spotlight or earning money from it or whatever it is that you decide is external validation from your gifts. So that's what I would look at first. What comes so inherently natural to you that you override it on the regular, because that's going to give you guys the clarity for sure. And if you are here to be a support or anchor multiple people, kind of. You could be an anchor of support to a small circle. You could be it to a community. You could, kind of like Violet does for me, she anchors my stuff, but she's also an amplifier. So Violet comes in and she supports my mission because it's really also her mission, but she makes sure I stay grounded and focused because it's very easy for me to circle around in all sorts of different directions. And then she takes those tones and she helps push them out into the world because that's her job. She's an anchor and a messenger. I'm an existentialist and a messenger.
Literally what I got when I took the quiz too, which is hilarious.
That's so funny. That whole quiz we channeled, like, it's so accurate. It's not even funny. So just be careful that you don't make what you are enough. Right? Like, you need to make sure that who you are, you honor, and you start to go, this is my gift. It's so natural and easy for me. This is who I am, and this is exactly who I came here to be.
Anywhere you're making it harder than it needs to be, because this should not be that hard. Destroy and uncreate all of that.
Yeah. And if you're not having fun doing it, you're not in alignment. It should be fun. Okay, that's a big key. It should be fun. If it's not fun for you, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're not in the right stream. There's something missing. There's something you're in avoidance. And so that's where we need to do the self-work and keep digging. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up for today. Leave your comments below. We will come back to questions and stuff and bring them into future episodes. We'll bring them into blog posts, and we'll certainly keep going with more of this data, because I know it's just going to help us get into wider and wider spectrums of information to help everybody ground into why they're here. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Adios, amigos.